Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. It's Monday. We are with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Good to see you.
Good to be seen.
Have a good 4th of July holiday?
Well, it was all right. It was all right. I ate a burger.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you celebrate American independence?
I did. And freedom.
All of that good stuff.
I behaved independently and freely.
Gotcha. Let's talk about some international affairs. President Donald Trump on the world stage for round 2 of his world tour there. How would you evaluate his latest performance?
I think you have to evaluate it on 2 bases. One is evaluate it on the rules that applied before Trump totally turned our politics upside down. And second, evaluate it on the reality that now exists in the Trump era. Before Trump came along and turned our politics upside down, the performance he had at the G20 would be disastrous and outrageous and a catastrophe for the country and Western civilization or the world. Showed no leadership. You had all these countries moving forward on trade, except America's not participating. You had all these countries moving forward on climate control, except he's not participating. He tweets that everybody's talking about John Podesta, who I don't think all of them have heard of, and why he didn't turn over his computer to the FBI. His daughter sits in a place of world leadership. I could go on, but then the only thing that seemed to excite him was getting to shake hands with Vladimir Putin. He was anxious to get real chummy with this man who meddled in our elections and is a horrible human being and no friend by any remote stretch of the imagination to our country, and then presumed to talk about a cybersecurity partnership with the country that cyber interfered in our once sovereign and treasured sovereign American election. So, pre-Trump, that's the worst kind of performance an American president could have had. Today, in the new rules of Trump politics, he put America first and he stood up for America and to heck with the world and good for him, which solidifies his base, which is at the present time all he seems capable of doing, but thus it becomes his most important thing.
Why would Republican leaders, and you saw some of them on the Sunday talk shows, they were discussing this.
Lindsey Graham,
but
Mark
why would they not take a stronger stand? Is it just the power is just it's too intoxicating for them?
You know, traditional Republicans took 2 good shots at Barack Obama with 2 guys they thought could do it, who could appeal to the center, John McCain and Mitt Romney, and both let them down. They couldn't get it done. They've got all the power now. They love having it. They can't seem to exercise it. They can't seem to get it done, but they love the opportunities that exist now that didn't exist before. Trump won, and so he was a winner, and they like winning. The other thing is everybody's got to concern themselves with their own domestic politics, own local politics, and in many of their districts and in many of their states, Trump is more popular than they are. So they've made their bed or sold their souls, it's whichever you would like to refer to it. But that's what's being done.
But beyond a Supreme Court justice, there's still not a lot getting done. And let's just focus on the biggie, and that's health care. The Republicans have had 7, almost 8 years to come up with a plan to repeal and replace Obamacare, which they talked about for those 7 or 8 years. And we find that they don't have a plan, and there doesn't seem to be any agreement for a plan, and there doesn't seem to be any consensus building for a plan.
No, losing. Consensus is dwindling, the prospects for it. Since the Republican takeover and Republican explosion since 2010 in Arkansas and across the nation, what single issue has fueled that more than any other?
It's been the Affordable Care Act.
And what was the Republican promise on that? Repeal and replace. I mean, that would be number one.
They ran for that at the quorum court level in parts of Arkansas. And
we've had just a total upturning of Arkansas politics as a result of that in 6, 7 years. John McCain this morning said, let's face it, I don't think it's going to get done. The New York Times had a piece over the weekend that said it's whatever momentum McConnell had for for getting a consensus on repeal and replace in the Senate is dwindling. If you start counting up the people who are opposed for whatever, senators who are opposed for whatever reason, you've got your conservatives like Cruz and Rand Paul and those, you've got your Medicaid expansion moderates like Portman and Collins and Heller in Nevada. And then you've got a Kansas senator, Republican senator, and a North Dakota Republican senator who went home and found that the key economic engines of the rural parts of those rural states are healthcare clinics, hospitals, and doctors. That's who's doing the hiring, that's who's doing the commerce. And they're all worried about provisions of this bill. If you put them all together, you've got in double digits. They can only spare 2. They've got 52 senators. They can only spare 2. There are 10, for various reasons or another, that don't seem to be, clearly don't seem to be for the bill at the present time. And if you do something to get Cruz and Paul and Johnson and whoever the other on the right, Mike Lee of Utah, then you lose the more moderate ones worried about Medicaid. I don't see how it gets done, which really creates a big issue because even I, big Obama guy, big Obamacare guy, Obamacare is not working. I mean, it's just partly because the Republicans and the Supreme Court weakened it, but it's not what, it needs fixes. And do we have a competent, functional, if the Republicans can't get anything done, do we have a center that can hold in American politics? A
bipartisan fix.
That's right.
Subject, yeah.
And we'll
that
just
would
have
be
to see.
A bit, yeah,
do you want to get into the
I do want to find out. I have tried for 2 weeks to get a position out of Senator Bozeman and Senator Cotton to no avail. I know other reporters and other journalists have done.
Well, if you can't do it, Roby, it can't be done.
Right. But they do seem to be, I think there was a period of tap dancing to see what the construction of some sort of compromise might be, and then this past week, impossible to find.
I'm gonna get worked up about this, but
don't exceed your blood pressure threshold there.
But I mean, you've got senators from states with Republican governors who support and embrace the Medicaid expansion that they chose in those states, who are standing up for their states and their governors and Medicaid expansion by saying openly, I'm against this bill with these provisions, these cuts in Medicaid to it. You've got a half dozen of them. In Arkansas, we have a very competent, very popular Republican governor who has said it leaves a $500 million hole in Arkansas's economy, and it's inordinately unfair. There's not a state in the country more dependent on Medicaid than Arkansas. There are a few that may have a little higher eligible populations, but they may not have expanded Medicaid to the point that it sustains their rural hospitals and their healthcare infrastructure. Arkansas is as needy as any state on Medicaid. And the governor has said that he has related that to Bozeman and Cotton, our senators.
I did at least get that of him.
And I praised you. You asked him the question, and are they, when you tell them, are they fighting for your side? And he said yes, but when you got right down to it, all he could say in their stead was, they're taking what I say and they're going to other people with it.
Right.
Okay. So, but even at that, even with their governor, a Republican governor of their state, saying that they won't admit that a position. They simply say they don't want, quote, get ahead of the issue. The New York Times on Saturday, did you see this?
I did. It was vague. It was that Bozeman.
Well, it's vague enough. But I mean, okay. I mean, the New York Times is doing a piece about the dwindling prospects for McConnell's dwindling prospects for passage. And it lists all the senators I've listed, most of them, and the reasons they're against. But in the third paragraph, it says 3 senators, Corker in Tennessee, Grassley in Iowa, and John Bozeman of Arkansas have withheld their support. So while we're down here wondering what his position is, and he won't tell us, and he won't tell his constituents, he apparently, unless this is fake news, he has told his majority leader, right now, I can't be for it. Why? I sent a question to his press secretary. Is that right? Is he not for it? Is it because of the Medicaid expansion? And if it's right that he's not for it, if he's withholding support, what needs to be changed or put in it for him to support?
What was the response?
Referred me to a June 27th statement that I condensed this way, blah, blah, blah. That was, they put out it was one of these classic Bozeman statements. Well, we got a bill. and I'm going to look at that, and if there are amendments, I'm going to look at that, and this Obamacare is not sustainable, and we're going to work hard on this. You've heard that spiel.
Sure.
That's all he's got.
Yep.
That's all he's got.
All
Well,
right.
I don't know why Arkansas, I'll quit now, but I don't know why Arkansas people can't get the same direct answer on an important program that Republican senators in similarly situated states have delivered. I do not, except Tom Cotton is simply trying to finesse this to cover himself with his home state and to keep his conservative bona fides for his national political ambitions. At least I understand that. Bozeman, I don't know why he just can't come out and say what I think I know. He wants Medicaid changed before he can support the bill.
All right, he's John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. We're going to take a quick commercial break.
Oh, more? You want me to keep going?
I do. I want to come back and talk a little bit about violent crime in Little Rock and the mayor's race. We're back right after this.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us. Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
Welcome back to Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Let's talk about violent crime in Little Rock. It's certainly been garnering headlines. We've got some new energy and activity in the potential mayor's race in 2018. But let's start with the crime that we've been reporting on first. Was it worse in the 1990s than it is now?
And what's the point of that question?
Well, I mean, are we overblowing what is going on here? Did we have a worse situation in the 1990s when there was gangbanging in Little Rock versus what's happening now?
Forgive me, Roby. You know I love you, but I don't understand the context of that question. I really don't. Okay. Numerically, in terms of people killed, considerably worse in the 1990s. Is it a
worse situation? Are we in?
Well, so what if it's not as bad? What if it was worse in the 1990s? It's bad now. When 28 people get randomly shot in downtown Little Rock in a feud between apparent local gangs with some Memphis intervention at a concert at 2:30 in the morning, and you're on, and it's a miracle that tens of people weren't killed, and when it were on national news that this happened, and when even before that we had a growing, re-emerging human tragedy in sections of Little Rock, with let me remind you, 11 shootings in 10 days before this incident. This was Mark Stodel, bless his heart, his point. Well, it's not as bad as in the 1990s. Okay. Great. Is that our judge? Is that the curve we're grading on?
Well, here's my point. Here's part of my point here is we did a lot in the 1990s to curtail and curb that. There was a special session on juvenile justice brought forth by Governor Jim Guy Tucker at the time. There was curfews. So there was a lot of action that was taken, and we are not taking any of that action now. So my question in the context was, is it worse now? Should we be doing some more of those things to get a stronger grip on this? We don't seem to be, and the conversation doesn't seem to be heading in that direction. We've got the governor putting a task force together to coordinate some stuff, and I haven't seen a plan from city leadership of getting a grip on this. We've had these police
We've had no discussion of, quote, zero tolerance policies, where you flood the relevant centers of criminal activity, of violent activity, with constant overpowering police presence. The current police chief, Mr. Buckner, I've heard him tell the city board those are counterproductive policies. He believes that when you go into a neighborhood so afflicted and you treat it with that kind of oppressive police presence, and you stop people for everything, like an expired tag or a muffler that's too loud, you do more public relations harm, you do more human relations harm than you do good. So I think that's a factor here. But I think we're to the point where we have to recommit ourselves to longer-term solutions and get honest about the divisions in our community. But yeah, it's time for some simple, stronger police presence. And it is interesting that we haven't yet seen that happen. And Little Rock's political dynamic is such that that wouldn't be universally popular, and we seem to have some timidity in our local leadership. But this may not be gang-banging in Little Rock HBO special as it was in the 1990s, but we've long had, and we've had a worsening human tragedy in some of our neighborhoods, and now we've got a city tragedy when it happens downtown and becomes national news. This affects not just a generation of young Little Rockians. This affects the city's ability. As the governor said, his big deal for economic development of Arkansas, if the government hub of Arkansas is a place known as an unsafe place to be, that won't work. So this is, I'm just unimpressed with comparisons with 1990. I'm saying this is big, and it requires, yes, stronger police work and some real innovative ideas. And I've been talking to people, I may get around to trying to write about it, who really have some ideas for trying to do some good in the most severely affected neighborhoods. And we'll see.
So this current situation certainly opens the door for a challenge to the Little Rock mayor, which we've seen Warwick Saban is apparently throwing his hat in the ring. Others are discussing a potential.
And just a few minutes ago, Mayor Stodler
says he's running for re-election.
He's running.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think you could have some challengers to some long-term city board members as well too. You think?
Yes. Yeah. The political climate is ripe for a new level of interest, new standards of accountability and responsibility in city government. And Warwick Saban, to be fair, his interest in running for mayor goes back, as we wrote in our magazine a year ago. It preceded this. But it somehow manages to sort of reflect the new instability as well. Stodler says he's going to run again. I wouldn't be surprised to see others run. And this Little Rock dynamic that we saw in the school issue. Little Rock is a blue city, like many metropolitan areas, but the blueness is a combination of the African American vote and progressive white people in the progressive neighborhoods. And how does that hold in a city election, or has that become two different things? Navigating this next mayor's race, if it's as competitive as I think it's going to be, is going to be quite a tough political challenge for Saban, Stodler, and whoever else gets in it. Because Little Rock is a strange, divided, and incendiary place right now. It simply is.
All right. He's John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. As always, good stuff.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That's all for today's program. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.